Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro, and it's time for updated Oscar predictions for all the below-the-line categories and SAG Ensemble. Interjecting here to say that Babylon has some reactions. And because this video was filmed like a week ago, I kind of wanted to slightly move some things around. We're not going to take two big swings because the reactions are very mixed and I have no idea what's happening. I don't know if it's Wolf of Wall Street. I don't know if it's Don't Look Up. I don't know if it's something else. So the positioning of Babylon in a couple of these categories may be slightly different from the commentary around the categories.
Cinematography, Avatar, because we had it in Best Picture, the rule is that we have to put it at number 1 for cinematography.
Jesus.
Listen to me. Movies don't win cinematography for just being like a movie that has like good cinematography that's in Best Picture. They like when it's showy and doing a lot of shit. So The Fabelmans isn't gonna win cinematography. Since Avatar, when you get nominated in Best Picture and you win visual effects, every single time that happens, you also win cinematography.
Every single time?
Yeah, seven times.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
It's big.
I remembered that you convinced me because of this.
The trend almost got broken. Like if Mad Max had won visual effects, but it didn't win visual effects. The trend is long-lived and we must worship it. Even down to 1917. I mean, it's very like digital and it almost seems like an animated movie. But we did give it to Gravity.
And the first Avatar.
And just because there's visual effects doesn't mean that somebody isn't in charge of what the look for the movie should be. So I don't think we should dismiss visual effects cinematography. It's a different game. It could be like the most showy visual movie.
Also, for doing all the underwater shit, I think that's also going to be a powerful case.
If it's not in Best Picture, though, I don't think it's going to win, and it could maybe not even be nominated.
Now, I think Babylon has a great case to make because the camera work's going to be off the fucking charts. We can tell from the trailer that, the filmmaking is insane, and we could tell before the trailer that the filmmaking will probably be insane.
Here's my thing with Babylon. It feels too much like a thing that already happened. And cinematography, like La La Land, it just feels like it's giving it to similar cinematography stuff that they did with La La Land, possibly less dazzling.
When does that interfere?
Cinematography winners, I feel like they're usually doing something kind of new. It's not like the same thing twice.
That's not necessarily true, I think.
It feels like every year we're like, oh, the number 1 in tech categories is Nightmare Alley because The Shape of Water won these techs and therefore Nightmare Alley could win these techs. And it's like, no. Well, when you really get down to it, they like to do something that doesn't feel like they've already awarded the same thing.
But you said it, look, they already awarded Avatar a cinematography Oscar.
Yeah, but I think that The Way of Water is going to feel a little bit different.
It's like a weird argument to say when your number 1 is a sequel to a movie that already won.
I could debunk, if we're going consistent with my argument, Lord of the Rings 3
All I'm
didn't even
saying
get nominated
is
for cinematography. Lord of the Rings 2 and 3 didn't even get nominated. But I think the difference here is that it's not coming out a year later. It's coming out over a decade later. The technology's different. The filmmaking is a little bit different.
I don't think it really helps us here. I don't think it helps us discern that much. Let's say Avatar isn't nominated for Best Picture. Now you have to actually think about it. You're just running to Avatar.
Then I'd probably say Babylon.
Yeah, so stop running to Avatar like it's definitely going to be there. It might not be there. And then Babylon, okay. You do think Babylon has a great shot, bitch.
It just feels like one of those things that it's not actually going to happen. That's all I can say.
I'm fine with you. I'm fine with it being number 2. Fabelmans for cinematography, it'll get nominated. I just don't really see a win for it.
It's not as showy as West Side Story.
And it's also not, as amazing as, again, Spielberg's earlier work or, Up to Schindler's List. I feel like that was the top of his game, and his film stunts just haven't been quite that level.
But I'm telling you, it's going to be like The Irishman, where I felt like the crafts in The Irishman, outside of, the editing, were, fine. The production design, costume, cinematography didn't, need to be nominated, in my opinion, but they still nominated all of them just because it was, The Irishman. And that's what's going to happen with The Fabelmans. It's also just not showy enough. I don't think it's the most cinematography of the year. Top Gun Maverick, it will get ASC nominated. We know that. We all know that. I think it could get the BAFTA nomination. I think it could get Critics' Choice. I think it could do pretty well. It's a good-looking movie. It's also from an Academy Award-winning cinematographer. It's kind of weird that people are being dismissive of it because you know it's getting ASC. And it's actually a good-looking movie that did a lot of golden hour shit, and they put the camera in the plane.
It'd be one thing if they just put a camera in a plane and that's why it was getting nominated, but actually, every scene is really good-looking in this movie. And I also really liked the close-ups here. So it's not just that they put a camera on a plane, and then everything you capture in the plane looks great because it's in a plane. There's a lot of thought put into cinematography here, and it would be deserving.
All Quiet on the Western Front, I think that this could get cinematography because it's just kind of hard to say no.
You know, I said this in the review. It really does, to me, feel like a cross between Deakins and Lubezki. Like that level of shit sometimes.
The style feels like a combination of things we've seen before, but like done really fucking well. It's got long ass takes, interesting colors, interesting lighting, really smooth camera. Like it's one of the showiest cases of cinematography of the year. Some of the best cinematography.
Yeah, it should get nominated. It's very powerful shit.
And the cinematographer's branch will go international. Even to the point of Don't Look Away, which was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Well, that was so weird that it's like an anomaly.
Yeah, but they've done it before. A lot of times the movie needs to be black and white for them, but I feel like this could be different. I don't know how well it's going to do with precursors. If it got BAFTA, I think that would be pretty clear, but I wonder if it doesn't get BAFTA, if it'll feel like it's getting in or not. I also think Bardo could definitely get nominated for cinematography still.
I agree.
That shit was fucking nuts. The only reason it's not in the 5 is because the reactions are divisive and it doesn't seem like it's going to be totally up the Academy's alley. But the cinematographer's branch, like they'll kind of do, different shit. And they don't always care. Like if the visuals are so outstanding, they might still nominate it.
If they're just looking at pure craft, like Bardo should get a nomination. And it should be win competitive. People loved this movie, it would be winning. So it's kind of weird, like, it's one of those things where you realize that it just matters if they actually like the movie. It doesn't always matter on you can't really separate, like, technical merit alone. But I hope they can do it to some extent here.
It, very may well still get nominated, though. Like, it's close.
Yeah.
Banshees of Inisherin, I think it'll be kind of close, but I don't know if it's going to actually get that nomination. Because it's not like that showy, like the lighting is good, but it's not like the camera movements themselves are like doing that much.
Yeah, there's a lot of competition,
Empire of Light is Deakins, and that may seem hard to deny, but again, I don't think it's Deakins' most showy
we
work.
threw that movie away. It's just sitting in the dumpster. Like I don't want to have to go and dive back in to get it, but I really feel like that's where it is.
But the thing is, we know that Deakins can be a lone nominee for his movie. It's just
not if it's the Goldfinch, every now and then.
He's been stretching his own game recently with like 1917 and Blade Runner and shit, like crazy shit. And this just feels like not his strongest work. It's very nice, but is it like his best shit? I don't really think so. And then the Batman, we could be coming off of, the strong love for Greg Fraser, who just won for Dune. It's a very good looking movie, has a very, very distinct look. But I think the Batman's going to be too weak, too early in the year. It's not going to get that robust Best Picture campaign. I don't think it's going to make it into these bigger tech categories. Emancipation had some showy stuff from Robert Richardson, who's won multiple times.
I wonder if that could be a lone cinematography nominee, if it's like insane.
It's possible.
The fact that it's in near black and white definitely makes me like look out for it.
I don't know, but I don't know if near black and white matters as much as black and white.
I would probably agree with you in a weird way.
Like Letters from Iwo Jima didn't get a cinematography nomination, but if they just turned the desaturation to 0, they probably would have gotten one.
I agree. Well, we did see Belfast not get a cinematography nomination.
Editing, I think we may have to shift and say Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah,
I mean, I do think if Everything Everywhere looks like actually strong at the Oscars to win, that it could get editing. Or maybe like Whiplash was probably not even top 5 in that one editing because it was just like the showiest editing.
Top Gun, just in all likelihood, it's probably just going to be the sound editing winner.
Like Ford v Ferrari.
Yeah, we've been seeing it a lot.
But Everything Everywhere does, like, I think a lot of people would really be behind that winning.
Yeah, I'm sure they would.
And it is probably some of the showiest editing I've ever seen.
That's for sure.
Like maybe even more so than Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, but some people might think it's a little frenetic and a little crazy and whiplashy, but I don't think that's necessarily like a bad thing when it comes to editing because they gave it to Bohemian Rhapsody. But I do feel like Top Gun Maverick does have the edge because of sound. Yeah, because of sound. And also just because it feels like just such an obvious achievement at the tip of people's tongues when they think about Top Gun Maverick.
Also, like, you don't need a tech win to win Best Picture. Like, you don't really need that anymore. Which is also a thing that people need to note when they think The Fabelmans is winning techs just because it's winning Best Picture.
When was the last time a Best Picture winner won a tech award?
The Shape of Water won 2 tech awards. And the artist got...
Okay, you went back pretty far to get to The Shape of Water. That's like several
And
years.
Argo got 1. And Birdman got cinematography. Nomadland didn't even get cinematography.
It didn't even.
Moonlight, Spotlight, Green Book, 12 Years a Slave, The King's Speech, Coda, and Nomadland didn't win any techs, okay? And Parasite.
Well, they all won like 3 Oscars.
Yeah,
most of these win like 3.
Yeah, but you don't need text to go along with the package. Fableman's is pretty, I would say, pretty close to being locked in for editing. And Babylon is definitely going to have some showy editing. I mean, we've seen
I would say
DHL
that might
does.
be like number 3 because, yeah, it's going to be some shit.
I wonder, though, if it gets criticized for being too long and it is over 3 hours, if that could hurt it. Like, The Wolf of Wall Street didn't get editing.
Interjecting from the future, after the Babylon reactions, I think with these kind of mixed reactions, Babylon is not a safe bet for editing anymore. So I think it's actually, in fact, on the cusp.
Banshees of Inisherin, I think this is like, you know, over-nomination territory where it just starts to get, like, extra noms.
Oh, you actually have it in.
Yeah, we had it in last time because
Wow.
I do believe in that. You don't always have to know why something is getting editing for it to get editing. You don't always have to know why. Like Green Book,
Like, if it's one of the most well-liked movies, then it can get editing.
yeah. And Banshees like had, you know, as you've mentioned lots of times, like really good comedic timing, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't necessarily be a bad nominee.
No.
And also, if we think it's a top 3 movie, and I do kind of believe that it's a top 3 movie, then I will have it in.
I'm thinking of Avatar. The first one was nominated. If the second one's nominated, does it get nominated?
If it's a top 5 contender like Avatar was, then maybe.
It's not going to be top 5. Women Talking has some showiness in the editing. It
Yeah.
does.
It's got lots of montages and stuff,
And it wouldn't be weird for it to get nominated. It would be pretty normal, actually.
but it does feel like it could be a thing that it gets snubbed for. In
Right.
the way that Marriage Story got snubbed for editing. I don't know why I think that that's similar, but sometimes like a really good movie has like skilled editing and the Academy is just like, what? I didn't hear you. What? Sorry.
I mean, again, if Women Talking just falls out of popularity into like the bottom half of contenders, then yeah, I would say it could miss
Yeah.
it. Elvis could still get nominated for editing because no one else is doing like that split screen shit this year, okay?
Glass Onion is.
That's true, Glass Onion is. Elvis was pretty nuts. Elvis obviously has to be nominated for Best Picture, though, for that to happen.
Unless it's like a Tick Tick Boom.
No, even at number 7 is pretty high.
It is that showy. Like, it is that
very
showy.
showy.
And Bohemian Rhapsody won, but the Academy might
Do they
regret
know that
might-
do they like lament for that?
I think
a little
that they
bit?
know.
I think they might.
I think they know, and they might regret it too. Decision to Leave's kind of on another level. It condenses the story in a really quick way and does a lot of inventive shit. I feel like everybody who sees the movie is like, damn, the editing. And so I don't think you can count a movie like that out, even though it may not be so strong in other categories. Like, it could be an anomaly type of thing, but the editing branch also isn't that sophisticated, I feel like. After Sun, if that got some more picture hype, I would think that it would start to rise in editing because when you watch the movie, you understand what they've achieved with the editing, especially in those last few minutes. Like, pretty amazing. But it would need to be like pretty deep in the conversation. And to get editing, like to get the 5 slots of editing, I don't know if you can be like just getting into Best Picture and get it. The Whale would be like a weird thing if they like really, really loved the movie to a surprising degree. Triangle of Sadness, I don't know. At this point, what are we really doing? What are we really doing? Production design, still have Babylon winning because the Hollywood movies always win, like Mank and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, La La Land. That's what this is. This movie has like $100 million budget, which is more than 3 times the budget of La La Land, which is nuts.
Well, even people who are leaving Babylon out of their major predictions are just like, oh yeah, well, you know, we'll still have it winning in production design because duh.
Because literally The Great Gatsby.
Yeah, so this one's kind of duh. Now, Avatar: The Way of Water.
The first one won. Conceptualizing like the world and everything, and that's all very impressive. And so that's number 2. And if it's a big in Best Picture, I think that could be a threat to win against Babylon, actually.
Yeah.
The Fablemans is not going to win this category because it is not the most production design of the year. Too many people having the Fablemans at number 1 in tech categories, and I won't stand for it. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to bite that bait. It's just not going to happen. It's not the most anything.
It didn't occur to me immediately, like, oh, that's definitely getting nominated for production design. But it's like, when I think about it, I'm like, okay, sure, it can get nominated.
And then Elvis I did squeeze in, which is kind
Really?
of weird to say because that's
Really?
me thinking 4 nominations. And, whew, I don't know if I want to say that actually because I've always said Elvis, if it's not getting Best Picture, it's not going to get more than 3 nominations.
Yeah, but you might put it in for Best Picture.
we don't know that.
Well, see, it's between Elvis and Pinocchio, right? And it's also between Elvis and Pinocchio for picture.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Well, Elvis like has precedent to get in, so the production designer who does all of Baz Luhrmann's films, also does the costume design. Like, she does both. She won 2 Oscars for The Great Gatsby. She also won 2 Oscars for Moulin Rouge's production design and costumes, was nominated for Romeo and Juliet production design, nominated for Australia for costumes. So when a Baz Luhrmann comes out with a film, she's on it in both these crafts areas, and she's gonna get one or the other or both. Elvis was like a big production. It was one of his biggest movies, most well-liked movies. I feel like it could go for the double nomination here. Then there was a lot of extravagant hotel set pieces and shit like that looked almost like too crazy, and that's just part of like the style. There's a lot.
I mean, if you think it's getting costume, production design, actor,
and makeup,
then like probably at that point, Best Picture is not hard to squeeze in. You know, Black Panther is another film that could get a bunch of techs, but not get Best Picture. Will you concede that maybe it could get snubbed for production design? Because
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Because I don't think costumes it'll get nominated, but
Yep.
Black Panther could get snubbed because people like it less than the first. It's just not the norm to nominate Marvel films for production design anyway.
Pinocchio, though, is hard to squeeze in because it would literally be the first animated film ever to be nominated for production design. And I do think it definitely helps that it's stop motion because you can see the craft, like it's there. And this is Del Toro, who is known for, if nothing else, his movies having like incredible production design.
There's never been a stop motion film nominated for Best Picture. So if it breaks new ground there, then like why couldn't it also break new ground in this category?
It could, but there also might be a stigma against it still.
Yeah, but if it's in Best Picture, I don't think there will be much of one. I mean, this has got to be the best shot an animated movie's had of getting production design pretty much ever. And I think Netflix will campaign it there. Like, I think if Netflix goes hard, like appealing to every single branch, like I think people would get behind this movie and even get excited that they're awarding an animated film in these categories that they wouldn't normally do. Yeah, it's like fun. They're going to have like fun with it. If Pinocchio becomes solid, then I think you might have to pull it out.
Well, we don't know, but we still don't know about Elvis for sure, I don't think. All Quiet does have the type of production design that the Oscars would nominate, but I don't think this movie's going to play, you know, just everywhere. Glass Onion has some amazing contemporary production design, but they are biased against contemporary production design.
It's sad that it's all the way down here because when I watched the film, I was like, wow, the production design was great in that. I hope it gets nominated. Oh, actually, that probably has a pretty good shot. But now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I don't know about that.
And Everything Everywhere All at Once, another contemporary movie. I don't know if it's quite enough for it to be nominated like that. And Bardo is another contemporary movie that had some crazy, like, magical realism shit. And there's one part where he's walking around a TV studio and it looks crazy.
Bardo deserves production design. It was rather insane and impressive. Again, if it was getting nominated for Best Picture, it would get it easily. But it's not how the world works.
I think if Don't Worry Darling were to get one nomination, and I think it could get a Passengers type of nomination because it was still a well-crafted movie, but if it were to get one nomination, maybe it would be production design. Or it could be costumes. I wish White Noise was getting nominated for production design because that was fucking crazy. I think Babylon's got strong frontrunner status with costume design. Pretty much the same case you make for the production design. Then Wakanda Forever #2. The costumes are going to be equally insane, and I think that's going to be really hard to deny.
Elvis, Fabelmans would be sort of like a default thing that you're going to do. You know, it's not that showy, but it's there. It's there enough.
It's like, okay, why not? And then The Woman King, I think, was showy enough, interesting enough that it could get nominated here.
I am looking out for Miss Harris Goes to Paris. You know, ever since reading the reviews for those, I was like, wait, people are really shouting out the costumes for this film. I wonder if there could be like a lone costume campaign in a similar way that like Coming to America gets makeup.
Could like Devil Wears Prada. The movie wasn't like that well known though, but you could be watching out for a BAFTA nomination for sure. The costumes in Living are being done by Sandy Powell, which definitely makes you raise an eyebrow because she can get in. But a lot of them are just like men in suits.
Yep.
And men in suits, I don't think
it's not a royalty period drama.
Yeah.
It's just people walking around a town.
They also have a lot of hats though. There are definitely like top hats and shit. Emancipation, it's quite far back in the past. Everything Everywhere, really interesting contemporary stuff. A lot of it's Jobu Tupake, but I think it's kind of weird to say, and it probably won't happen. Corsage could be like a lone costumes contender, which happens every year. You get someone like Belle or the dressmaker that tries to make their way in there.
And is Chevalier coming out this year? Or
It is
next
not.
year?
That's next year.
Okay.
The Whale will win makeup. It's winning Best Actor. That
Easy.
correlation is strong. We all know that.
Possibly
This
one
is-
of the most locked up categories of the night. I
I
mean,
would
easily.
say-
Actually,
I
easily.
would say that's easily locked up. The Batman, what they did to Colin Farrell is extremely impressive. Pretty amazing. That's definitely getting a makeup nomination.
Elvis definitely deserves one. Babylon.
They
I
have
guess-
makeup on a lot of people in Babylon in the trailer. There's a lot of shit. Old movie star makeup. Different.
Did La La Land
actors
get
with
made?
different
No,
looks.
La La Land didn't get makeup.
That doesn't matter. Babylon's in the 20s.
And
I-
wow.
Yeah,
you're-
I have X on.
I think Pearl helps X be talked about a lot. So there's that.
people are always hesitant to make crazy predictions in the makeup category, but then once the shortlist comes out and you have something like Coming to America or A Man Called Ove, that thing gets nominated if you have those heavy prosthetics. And if X makes the shortlist and it has those heavy prosthetics, they literally made Mia Goth look like an old person. The grandpa had a little bit of makeup too, even though he was old. Because they're trying to make them look like more grotesque in like a little bit of a stylized way. And it's the prosthetics. Again, that's what they like to see in this category. They're not going to nominate like the Fabelmans just for being like a movie. They will go for like a weirder movie that isn't contending anywhere else just because it has really impressive prosthetics. And so I'm just going to make the jump and say that X gets nominated.
But you are leaving out All Quiet on the Western Front, which was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
So-
but I think that movie, you got to try to keep the nominations to a little bit of a minimum if we don't really believe in it for Best Picture.
Yeah.
And sound cinematography, I think, is enough.
I'll agree with that. Black Panther, without Best Picture hype, I don't know about that.
I mean, it definitely can get nominated. It's just that the first didn't, and that's really the main reason for me. Matilda the musical, I mean, they do have something going on with Emma
What?
Thompson and her Mrs. Trunchbull makeup. That you can look at the trailer, like there's something going on there. It's a little weird. It's a little Tom Hanks and Elvis-y. Everything else, like meh. The Thor: Love and Thunder does, like, they do have like a weird Christian Bale thing going on there. I don't know what's number one for score, because here's a thing that I looked up that was quite interesting to me. Not since The Social Network could you say that a movie that won score wasn't to some extent a genre film. We're talking musicals, Joker, sci-fi movies, fantasy movies. That's the kind of shit that wins score. And yet, you have a lot of people thinking that it's going to be some low-key shit like The Fabelmans. The Fabelmans, I don't even think it's a lock to be nominated, because The Post didn't get nominated, and that had the same kind of like light piano shit. It wasn't his most showy score, wasn't his most interesting score, and they actually said no to John Williams for The Post, which was kind
I
of
think
crazy.
that's different, though.
I think it's different
Because I think
it's
the
still
people
good.
are calling out the Fabelmans for, the quality of the music.
You
And
didn't-
there's not
didn't even
that
notice.
much music, but some people are calling out some of the compositions. A lot of the shit she's playing on piano is not an original composition.
Some of it is.
And so a lot of the music is pre-existing music, and I don't know if people are realizing that. It really felt like, oh, there wasn't that much music in that movie to me.
Yeah, and John Williams has done crazier shit. And by the way, when we look at my theory, like, oh, John Williams, he wins Oscars all the time. Yeah, for genre movies. People kind of think John Williams, he's retiring soon, so they'll give him another Oscar. It's like,
Yeah.
he has 5 and he's like the most nominated person ever. So in what world is he overdue?
Awarding the Fabelmans in general is like, yeah, let's give it to all the guys who've been working on these movies for like decades and who all have like multiple Oscars.
Turns out Babylon released a couple songs from the soundtrack. This is the biggest, most bombastic score of the year. And I think that puts it out front. Pinocchio is a genre movie, and that is going to have like a crazy little fantastical Alexander Desplat score, and I think that's kind of locked in. That is going to get nominated. Do I think Desplat's going to win a 3rd Oscar for that? Like,
Maybe
I'm not sure. But also, we're looking at other composers like Hilder and Justin Hurwitz. They are going for their 2nd Oscars technically. So,
Well,
what's the
everybody
big
is
stretch?
kind of going for like another Oscar.
Women Talking has a piece of music at its center that I think is going to become like very well known to the ears, very iconic. And it's going to be the kind of thing that's on every single like music soundtracks playlist, and film students are going to start using it in all their projects.
A lot of the music is just that theme. And so that's where I think it has a little bit of a problem. I think Babylon might have the best shot because we know that the music is going to be nuts in that film. I mean, everyone here is like already nominated. 4 out of 5 have
Or could
won.
Avatar: The Way of Water win? Because the score in the trailer sounds really good, but the weird thing is, Simon Franklin, like, who is that? People didn't really know who Ludwig Göransson was when he did Black Panther, and he still won. And people like to say that they play favorites in this category. Hildur Guðnadóttir won off her first nomination too. So I'm not going to say Avatar couldn't win, and that is a genre movie. And Banshees of Inisherin, I just feel like that's going to happen.
I think it has as good a chance as any, but there's a lot of contenders here. The Batman, I don't have as much confidence in.
Well, it is one of the more memorable big scores of the year.
Because it goes dun, 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 dun.
It doesn't matter
dun.
what it goes.
That's the theme. Like,
it doesn't matter what the theme is or how minimal it is or whatever.
But for a movie that's not getting nominated,
in people's head.
It's not, that doesn't get stuck in my head.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Ask other people to sing you the Batman score, and they will do it.
That's a weird, no.
Yeah, Empire of Light, we have agreed to throw the movie in the lake and to bury it behind. Wakanda Forever even is kind of iffy to me. I know that the first one score, but it feels like the kind of nomination that wouldn't necessarily go along with it if it wasn't in Best Picture.
People say it's like as good as the first though.
Yeah, some people are even more
like
impressed
some
by
high quality shit. The Woman King, didn't we have that at number 5 last time when we were thinking about The Woman King?
We tried to put that in picture.
Yeah, we're not like considering it as much, I guess, because we're not considering the movie as much.
I don't really think that All Quiet is going to happen.
Nah.
I don't really think Top Gun's going to happen anymore. White Noise, Danny Elfman, that's a big name, and he does some really, really good work in it. Tar,
we really need to talk about Tar.
We need to talk about Tar.
Hildur Guðnadóttir wasn't really composing classical music for this score, so if you're hearing like the classical music in the film and you're thinking that's her, no, it's actually not. I looked up extensively to see like what people are talking about when they call her out for this film, and they're like actually campaigning her. It seems like they're bringing her around with the film. It's akin to Darren Aronofsky's Mother, like. It's at a very high concept level. Like she's deeply involved with the film's sound, but it's not a score as in a traditional sense. It's like underscore of underscore. It's like background noises are her score in a similar way that Aronofsky's Mother score was crafted, which is very abstract. Like you literally can't even hear it in the movie unless you're really trying to look after it. And we're talking about like her punching the punching bag. Like I don't think anyone's been nominated for doing that shit before.
Hildur Guðnadóttir even had such blue balls not being able to actually compose a score for a movie that she's working so hard on that she made a whole album of music for Tar that's not in Tar. It's just inspired by Tar. Her playing a few notes on the piano to her unfinished piece. Like, you think they're going to nominate that for score for, like, a few notes that the characters play on the piano? Like, what?
And even after the second movie, I was like, what score? What are you talking about?
Living had a nice score. The Whale has a divisive score. Everything Everywhere, it's too weird, but it's so impressive. How it interacts with, like, every minute of the movie is, like, just wild. She said it's not Bertel's strongest stuff, but it's got some showy piano in key moments. I would love to see Decision to Leave get nominated for score. That was definitely one of the best scores I heard this year, but that will probably not happen. Bardo had a good score. Bardo had a good score.
Wouldn't get nominated though.
Sound, Top Gun Maverick. Avatar will probably be nominated for sound. That's like pretty almost guaranteed, I would say. All Quiet on the Western Front, I feel like you have to.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid one. That's a hard one not to look over.
The Batman has impeccable sound. If they didn't nominate it, it would be very sad. And it would be like a weird thing that they just like, oops, they forgot they didn't know. Babylon, I think it will be a movie very heavy of noise and cacophony and music. And gotta justify a bold swing that I'm taking post-filming this video, which is that I kind of looked at this and I said, I feel like Babylon doesn't get sound. Maybe this is a misguided decision. I looked at my things and I just went, don't really see that. And I was like, Emancipation, thinking about that new trailer that came out. And I was like, okay, slushing through the mud, Civil War shit, looks kind of carefully crafted. And I'm like, huh. And so I'm throwing Emancipation in here. It's a little bit of a Hail Mary, but I could honestly see it. Like some Deepwater Horizon shit, you know? It's kind of a war movie. Wakanda Forever, I think this is a nomination it does not get if it's not in picture.
Yeah, no.
At Marvel movies don't get sound. People always think that they're going to and they don't. Elvis, that could happen if the movie's in picture. People are just like, hey, they made him go to a concert, so there you go. But sometimes people do overestimate music in movies and them getting nominated. Like Into the Woods, everybody thought was getting nominated for sound mixing, and it didn't happen.
Imagine if Elvis is a 7 nominee movie.
How confident are we in everything everywhere in sound?
I think it's like not a bad shot. Like it's a very prominent thing about the movie, but it doesn't need to go along with it.
Emancipation could sneak in there too. The
Well, I think the
Fablemans,
Civil War scenes would have to do it.
the Fablemans, I don't really think that's enough. I don't think that's enough. Pinocchio, maybe.
The Fablemans, I was thinking like this is the kind of movie they nominate for sound during the first act. It had some really unique, creative stuff going on with like the trains.
That's
and
it.
then that was it. It doesn't have enough for me to say this is gonna get nominated, but if it kept that shit up throughout the movie, I would have said yeah.
The song category, everybody agrees Rihanna is going to win for Lift Me Up. Sorry to the Gaga stands. It's okay. She already won an Oscar. Is the reason that she's on here because it's the best song ever? Not necessarily. But is the song a tribute to Chadwick Boseman? And does narrative matter when you are a song? Absolutely. And so I think that this is the new song frontrunner. And it's more exciting to give it to Rihanna than to give it to Lady Gaga again. And also Ryan Coogler will win an Oscar if this happens, because he has a writing credit on it, which is sort of weird. But Diane Warren song, they are campaigning it, and I saw a campaign ad for it. It doesn't matter what the movie is. It doesn't matter if no one's heard of it, no one cares. Like, they know that they can get the song nomination. New Body Roomba for White Noise. Such a fun song, interesting use of a song, and would be cool nomination for LCD Sound System. It seems like Netflix is campaigning it, and they understand and they know. And even James Murphy came to our Q&A at New York Film Festival. That kind of shit, that kind of shit is important. If this and Naatu Naatu got in, I feel like this is too optimistic for me. But I feel like Naatu Naatu does have a shot. Like if there's anything they should nominate it for, and how much fun would it be? How much fun would it be for this song to get performed on the Oscar stage?
Yeah.
It would be incredible. And then you'd get the entire country of India to tune in.
That would be very exciting. I am definitely rooting for that.
Unfortunately, there's bullshit like Nobody Like You from Turning Red. Now, I don't have a problem with the song from Turning Red insofar that it's just, it's like, oh yeah, this is just like those little silly little Backstreet Boys songs that we used to like back in the day. But do we really need to nominate this thing for an Oscar?
I don't feel like that would get nominated.
Oh, people have this in their 5. Let me just tell you that people have this.
Well, I don't really think that
deep
would
into
get
their 5.
nominated because
It'll get like Golden Globe or some shit. But like the Oscars could gatekeep
it doesn't feel like the kind of song that gets nominated.
Also, the important thing is that it's Phineas. The
Like,
Academy
it's
Award
sorta goofy.
winner Phineas.
It's sort of goofy. It's part of a soundtrack inside of the movie. I don't know.
Carolina from Where the Crawdads Sing was a pretty successful movie, and it's Taylor Swift, but it's not a song that people care about the most. They like denied Lana Del Rey for The Great Gatsby, and that was like a big song. Like, I don't think that they necessarily go off star power like that. Like, they didn't nominate Lorde for The Hunger Games. They don't always do that kind of stuff. You have This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere, which I think might be like them not nominating the Minari song or whatever was from Boyhood that people thought was getting in because it was associated with one of the top contenders. This does have David Byrne and Mitski, but I feel like they could have made something that sticks a little more with people. They're not really trying to create a pop song though, so I kind of get it. Oh fuck, I almost forgot about this shit. Ciao Papa from Del Toro's Pinocchio. I have heard that a lot of people think that the songs in Pinocchio are one of the weak spots of the movie. Like, they're not the most memorable. It's not like Disney level songwriting.
But it is in the movie.
You have Stand Up from Till. Every year there is a song that's called Stand Up from a movie
About
in the
civil
civil
rights.
rights era.
Yeah.
Like every year this happens, and they get nominated like kind of often. So I guess we can't underestimate it. Love Is Not Love from Bros. I mean, unfortunately the movie flopped fucking
Yeah.
hard. Very sad to see. Something from Avatar: The Way of Water that got nominated at the Hollywood Music Media Awards or whatever they are. Vegas from Elvis I think is going to be eligible, and that's Doja Cat. We have to watch out a little bit for that too. Visual effects, The Way of Water is going to win the category. We've known that since day one. I don't know if Wakanda Forever is number 2. Like, I don't necessarily think it's a lock, but it'll probably be nominated. People say there's nothing like glaringly bad about the visual effects like there was in the first one. I think Everything Everywhere is going to get nominated. I do think it's going to get nominated. I think the narrative's really strong.
It's very scrappy. And so I don't really know what to compare it to.
Well, there is no one to compare it to. It's a very unique narrative.
So I don't know. That's my conclusion about it.
Like, will the visual effects people be impressed with it because it was so scrappy, or will they be like, well, we're kind of on to bigger and better things over here. We know how to do more complicated shit than that. Or they might just admire the movie's creativity and kind of doing it in your basement sort of thing.
I think it's a case of how much do they love the movie.
And the visual effects branch, like, they kind of go for different stuff. Sometimes we get a little confident and we say, oh, they're going to go for Arrival. They're going to go for Welcome to Chechnya. And they don't quite do that. But there were a lot of visual effects shots and everything everywhere.
Top Gun Maverick, I think we need to see a reel.
I've conceded though on this because I think it's going to be like No Time to Die getting visual effects. Apparently there were over 1,000 visual effects shots, and that information alone made me go, okay, I have to stop being resistant on this. Some people are like, the only reason you're not putting it in is because it's practical effects, but they like practical effects. No, I'm not saying it's practical effects. It's not an effect to put the camera in the plane and fly the plane around. That's not an effect. There's not practical effects in Top Gun. I don't know what you're talking about. They actually did visual effects. That's what they did. They put planes in, they made them flip around, they put some missiles in, and yeah, there were some backgrounds and stuff like that, especially in the end when they're like, gonna invade the base. Like, that's visual effects stuff. Probably like a lot of the mountains and shit.
So that one, again, is about narrative and how they pitch it, whether they can make people see the visual effects, just like 1917 did. When people couldn't really tell like where they were. You need to tell people what's impressive. Pinocchio, I mean, we just got Kubo and the Two Strings not many years ago nominated for stop motion. That didn't even win animated feature. Pinocchio's gonna win. This seems kind of likely, almost.
Yeah, and people say it is kind of a step forward in stop motion. Like, it's really, really impressive. They also nominated Nightmare Before Christmas. It's not even like there's no precedent like there would be in production design. Like, I think this will probably happen. We've seen that they can buy this kind of stuff. The Batman, I ended up dropping out, and I had it in all year. It is like a blend of practical effects that they probably would like to see, and there are a lot of visual effects shots, like the fight at the end on the raft and like the Madison Square Garden-esque building. Like, that's a lot of visual effects. And they used the whatever it's called, like, screen where the First Man used. That could definitely get nominated. But it's also just, again, the Batman might be a movie that undeservedly misses a few things because they're just not as interested in the movie overall.
Now, what if Doctor Strange gets nominated like over Black Panther, for example?
I mean, maybe, but nobody liked Doctor Strange.
Yeah, no one liked it.
And then, nope. Thor Love and Thunder. All quiet, like, I guess. And RRR people are like, can this get visual effects? I think the visual effects in RRR look a little bit cheaper than they would if it was like an American big studio. Which is not to say they don't work for the movie. I just think I noticed that watching it.
I think it just kind of goes along with the style where it doesn't need to look pristine because it's so fantastical.
They did have a lot of animals. They weren't like, Life of Pi realistic or anything. Animated feature, that's Pinocchio. That's almost locked in. That's going to be one of the most locked in things of the night, I would say. Turning Red and Strange World, Disney is gonna have to sit this year out because Del Toro is on the campaign trail, carrying that little figurine and just like, smiling. My Father's Dragon will be another nomination for Cartoon Saloon. Unfortunately, Wendell and Wild was kind of a flop on Netflix and people didn't really go and see it. Marcel the Shell has also been confirmed that it is eligible.
Yeah, I would say that's probably in over Wendell and Wild. Whoever is responsible for like the screenplay on Wendell and Wild definitely dropped the ball. Like, that's
Jordan
the reason.
Peele?
Whatever happened with the screenplay, that's the reason the movie's like not that good. Jordan Peele is not a lazy writer, but it really felt like a first draft. Like, it had, threads that felt like they didn't go anywhere, characters that felt like disappointingly underdeveloped by the end.
But the animation branch could still go for it because they're just impressed with the animation.
Yeah, and it's still impressive. It's unique. It's Henry Selick. I mean, that's a huge sell in itself. Marcel the Shell is interesting because it's such a small budget film. It's not as impressive as like Wendell and Wild for its animation.
It is like interesting though. Like, it's an interesting case of animation.
People love Marcel the Shell, and I think it could get nominated because people think that movie's cute.
Yeah, but people also didn't see that movie. That movie also went really under the radar.
Lightyear is like gone.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
The Bad Guys, I think, is possible. That's like a DreamWorks thing that people kind of liked, but I don't think people were so passionate about it that like it has to get in or anything, though I do see people predicting it now. Thank goodness they actually did change their mind about Apollo 10.5 not being eligible. Obviously, that's an animated movie, and that should be nominated, but it probably won't be. International feature, we got decision to leave it back at number 1. All Quiet, we had it up there for a little bit, but then we decided no. And I think what's powerful about this is that you get Park Chan-wook on the stage. People don't really know or care who Edward Berger is nearly as much. Park Chan-wook is an accomplished filmmaker. You got to get him up there.
Also, if we're thinking about it in terms of like
international film winners often have the director nominated. Who's closer to getting nominated? It's Park Chan-wook. I think Close is easily like number 3. It's been very buzzed about. I think Bardo will possibly get this nomination. It could get this in cinematography, but I'm not even sold that it necessarily gets this nomination. Yeah. Like, Bardo is a weird movie. It's just a weird. People like it. I think there's enough people who like it a lot that would get nominated. And also just knowing Inarritu and respecting Inarritu. The Quiet Girl is a movie that I'm really looking out to see if they can give this a nice push or actually release it in the US before the nominations or something, because this movie apparently is winning over people really, really hard. Like, whoever sees this movie. I'm just waiting for this movie to have its moment in the US because we don't really have much information on when they're going to release it. But if they push this to voters, if they do a campaign, I think they can get it in. Holy Spider might get nominated. That's been a movie that, has sustained some festival momentum, generally well liked. Not too many people's favorite movie of the year, but it doesn't necessarily have to be to get into this category. Corsage is getting some buzz, and Vicky Krieps is behind it. It's a little bit important. Joyland is fantastic. I would love it to get nominated. I don't really know what its chances are. I don't really know what to make of that. I guess it depends if it's a huge breakout hit. Definitely a movie you should check out. It's extremely well made, well shot, well acted. Argentina 1985. I'm hearing a little bit of things about this one. Plan 75 Japan seems like a thing that people would not be expecting that much and then comes back in. I just have a feeling that it could be that. I thought Alcaraz was a bigger contender than you're having it. I read that it was a little bit of a slow burn. Saint Omer, some people think this is happening because it is one of the top most critically acclaimed movies of the year when you look at Metacritic, but this movie is fucking slow. It is not going to work for everybody. I have seen it. I thought it was interesting. It built to something that I was like, okay, you definitely did something different there. I would need to see that again to really wrap my head around it, but I also didn't find it to be the most enjoyable movie of the year personally. And I thought, I don't know if that's an Oscars thing. It's a critics thing for sure. EO does have a lot of buzz, but it's a little too much of an experimental type of movie. Jumping in here a few days later just to re-talk about documentary feature because some important precursors have happened. The Critics' Choice Documentary Awards, the International Documentary Association, and the Cinema Eye Awards all happened already, which is half the precursors you need going into documentary feature. And we're going to tell you what we've learned. So, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, movie that most consider a possibility to win. This movie missed a couple weird nominations, the weirdest of which is that it didn't even get nominated at the Critics' Choice Documentary Association for documentary feature. It got director, but the 10 slots, they couldn't fit it in. I'm not going to say that means that things get snubbed. If this does get nominated, it may very well win. Fire of Love really barely missed a beat. It's been included everywhere. It's been winning big awards. It was second place at the Critics' Choice Documentary Awards. Everything's shaping up for this movie to be nominated. I think that's definitely going to happen. Navalny's also doing very well. I am ashamed to have doubted it last month. Brother Bro was right with all the Putin shit. People are definitely going to get behind this one. I think this one will be nominated. Descendant has not been performing at 100%. I'm a little worried that it won't be nominated. I remember we also felt this way about Time, that it's the best, one of the best documentaries of the year, but we're worried that it won't be nominated. I think Descendant will probably still make it in at the end of the day. And then All That Breathes is a movie that I didn't think it was top contender, but it's been hitting all the marks so far, and so I will put it in here. And what are we talking about when we're saying hitting the marks? I mean, I'm looking at the precursors that seem to correlate with what gets nominated. I've been keeping track of this for a little while. Even Writing with Fire last year, people were like, that's probably not going to happen. And I was like, you better watch out. I was very close to predicting it because I saw that it hit some of these key things. And All That Breathes is really hitting a lot. Very reasonable to have in. Moon Age Daydream is the one from the top 5 that is performing the weakest. And it kind of feels like that's going to be the one that people like a lot that gets snubbed. It's also a little bit experimental, a little bit unorthodox. The Territory's also been doing really well. Definitely thinking about this one. I think it's building steam and it might be able to get in. Goodnight Oppie also might get in. It is not the most acclaimed documentary, and yet this won first place at the Critics' Choice Awards. Most of the reviews are like, yeah, it's good. A little bit sappy, a little crowd pleaser, a little obvious, but this might be the crowd pleasing kind of documentary that gets in. Maybe it's this year's My Octopus Teacher. And there's Senior, which is the Netflix documentary about Robert Downey Jr.'s father. That one hasn't been performing that well at these things, but it seems like one that could, build a serious awards campaign, especially with Robert Downey Jr. behind it. Aftershock's been doing okay. Miha got a couple key ones like the Cinema Eye Audience Prize and the IDA nominations. And those two are like a pretty good winning combo. It's not 100%, but I did notice that particular combo is pretty good. But this is like a Disney Plus thing, so it also just doesn't really feel like it's on brand. Sydney, the documentary about Sidney Poitier. And I don't really know what to say about the rest of them, but Icarus The Aftermath has been basically just MIA, completely missing. And so I don't really have confidence in that anymore. SAG Ensemble. You were persuading me last time to not have Everything Everywhere at number 1, but I was telling you that, like, if you think about it, if that movie is going to win Best Picture, I feel like SAG's going to be one of the things that it picks up.
I mean, I don't disagree there, really. It just doesn't have, like, an enormous cast.
Also, the cast is just legendary. Like, Michelle Yeoh and Ke Huy Quan are legends. Jamie Lee Curtis is a legend, and James Hong is a legend. And Stephanie Sue is great.
Yeah, well, James Hong, I mean, I think people know who he is, but probably not most people.
And they like the movie where the family unit is cozy and nice, and we like it. And when all those motherfuckers are up on the stage together, you got the family and you got little like Auntie Jamie Lee Curtis coming along. Like, we like it. We see them on the scene.
We also know that the SAGs get really happy about awarding diversity.
But then again, Chicago 7 won against literally like 4 movies that were non-white casts. Like, so it's not every year. Fabelmans is just a thing that we'll get in just cause, like Belfast. That could win. It could win.
It could win.
I think that showdown at SAG Ensemble will be very important. Is Black Panther really a number 5? You could do The Woman King, because that would be a SAG thing to do.
Yeah.
But Wakanda Forever, people are really enjoying the cast.
Yeah, that's one thing I find really interesting is that even though the film hasn't been as acclaimed as the first one, people are saying the cast is still on fire. I don't believe in The Whale, really.
The Whale's got a solid 5,
I just feel like it's
folks.
Easy enough for that to just get nominated in its individual categories and stay there. Banshees of Inisherin might need like one more performance to stand out for me to be like, okay, well, I want to know like who else is going on with the ensemble, along with the ensemble.
You could be watching this video and say, if you're predicting 4 nominations, how do you not have SAG Ensemble predicting? It's called The Power of the Dog, folks.
Oh, yeah?
It's called The Power of the Dog, which we always said wouldn't get the SAG nomination.
Yeah, we did say that, didn't we?
Glass Onion, could that do what Knives Out couldn't? It was weird that Knives Out couldn't. And some people say that actually, if you look at it, there was like some kind of like screener shenanigans going on, but the movie was on Netflix. We know it was available to people. Like, let's be real.
I just don't really see it. I also don't feel like it beats the cast of the first one, too. She Said could happen. There's so many performances in that film. It is just loaded with a bunch of great one-scene performance. 1 or 2 scenes. That would be like a good one, actually. It really would. There's so many good little things that just people in that film who are giving great performances who are not going to be recognized in supporting categories, but who deserve to be recognized on the list. I don't know where She Said is going to land with all the passion. Now, I had this thought, a crazy little thought pop into my head. And when I told you about it, I thought you were going to yell at me. But you didn't yell at me, because I'm actually kind of right when you think about it.
You are a little bit right.
Top Gun Maverick could maybe get nominated, and I'll tell you why. Like, think about the cast list here. Tom Cruise, Miles Teller, Jennifer Connelly, Val Kilmer,
whoever plays Hangman,
Ed Harris, the whole troupe of Little Mavericks, the Maverick Tadpoles, John Hamm. That's probably everything.
It's a lot of people. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
And also, like, the scene with Val Kilmer is like pretty gut wrenching, So him being in that is important.
And when you think about what SAG likes and what kind of voters that is, like, I think they like Top Gun Maverick.
I don't know. Like what do you mean? Who they are?
SAG loves their like clap your hands and get up and dance movies. They do. They like those kind of movies.
Is that kind of movie? I don't know.
Top Gun is a movie where
it's not like it's a musical.
Hug the stranger next to you. Like it may as well be a musical, buddy.
Whatever. But I also think that Tom Cruise stands a pretty solid shot at getting a SAG nomination in a weird way. Not ready to put that in my 5. But the SAGs do weird shit, and this could be maybe something they do. They haven't been like quite as weird as they have a few years ago. I felt like they were on this trend of doing really weird shit.
That's correct.
And they haven't been doing quite that lately. But we know that they'll snub shit that you think's gonna get nominated. They'll be like, okay, bi woman talking. They'll just like rip it out of the category.
for no reason. You're like, why did The Favorite have to go? Like, what did that deserve? Like, why Marriage Story? Why are these getting ripped? You know, they're pretty ruthless. Bros, I would love Triangle of Sadness to get nominated. That would be great and totally deserved. And it really is a true ensemble movie.
You should put RRR at the very, very bottom.
That's not happening. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? The like love interest? You think she was like the villain British guy, the general? Like, come on. Like, outside the two main guys, like, the acting was kind of weak in that movie.
Someone's yelling a lot for, you know, maybe you're getting a little defensive that, you know, maybe it could get nominated.
Absolutely not. What the fuck? No.
Okay. Or a fun rah-rah movie.
Stunt ensemble.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about Babylon, but
We don't have
there's
to.
a lot of people in it, so there you go.
to.
Although Babylon's the kind of movie I could see getting knocked out for something else. I will say that.
I kind of agree in a weird way, even though it does have a
Like,
big ensemble.
La La Land got knocked out.
Yeah, but we knew La La Land wouldn't get nominated because it didn't have a big ensemble.
I agree.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Which category do you think is the funniest?